Okay, so this tutorial is going to cover taking geometry that you've modeled in Rhino and bringing that into 3D Studio Max for you to render out. So what we've got here is this really sort of generic model. I've only modeled two things. So sort of Corbusian open plan model here. We have columns and we have floor plates. Nothing fancy in here. But we have two layers here, the thing to pay attention to, and the way that I'm going to be importing these into Studio Max is such that so we can set it up so that we can digitally maintain each one of these guys so we can apply materials to them down the road. So we're assuming that all the columns are going to be the same material, all the floor plates are going to be the same material. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to import those as objects into Studio Max. So all the floor plates will act as one and all of the columns will act as one geometry and it'll, in a sense, be merged together. And so everything should be taken care of, and that way if you're more familiar or comfortable with modeling in Rhino, you can do the modeling there in that space. Okay, so I'm not going over any modeling stuff, assuming you guys know how to do that. But what we can do is we can go ahead and we need to export this into 3D Studio Max. Go ahead and pull that in here. So the first thing you want to do, the file type you want to do is a Dxf, a digital exchange file. We go ahead and just put it somewhere. I have a tutorial file that I've gotten here. Give it a name. I'm just calling this file number 1 here, and then we hit save. And we'll go ahead and replace it. Okay, and so we pop this up here, and what ends up showing up is a bunch of different schemes in here. And so you want to pull up the 2004 natural scheme, and then you're going to go to edit the scheme. Okay, this is important because what will happen is, and it looks like it didn't maintain this, the original scheme for taking AutoCAD out of Rhino and putting it anywhere else takes surfaces, the NURBS, and turns those into curves. And so if you've been modeling our model space, all of those models are NURB surfaces, what will happen is we'll get a bunch of curves. Obviously we don't want that if we want to do any kind of rendering. So we need to adjust that as an export setting. So we need to build our own scheme in a sense to get this set up so we can take it in to the software properly. So we take this and just drop this down, and we can set the meshes, surfaces as meshes and the meshes as meshes. And this is an important distinction between Studio Max and Rhino, is that Studio Max is a mesh modeler versus Rhino being a NURBS modeler. And so what it's going to do is a mesh is a polygonalized mesh that basically converts a series of geometries into a set of triangulated surfaces. So everything is based on triangles. Whereas NURB surfaces are based on mathematical equations, so they can be infinitely smooth. This is sort of the example is a perfect circle versus a polygon that has an infinite number of sides that sort of simulate smoothness. Okay. So once we have this set up, we have meshes. So we can go ahead and you want to save this as a scheme that you're going to use later on down the road. We'll just call this export to max. Okay. And so now that we have that, and we go ahead and we can close that, and it pops up here, and we just hit OK. And it's going to ask us what the density of polygons are, and this is going to be something you're going to want to pay attention to. I have a very, very simple set of geometries. All of these geometries essentially distill down to a series of planes, so I can use very, very low settings. If you have something that's actually complex, where you actually have some surface geometry or topography to that, you're probably going to want to bounce that up. Usually the middle of the road's a good start, and if you decide that you want to have a little bit finer tuning in that, you can obviously beef that up. Keeping in mind that the more polygons you have, the heavier your model is, the longer it's going to take to render, and all of that. Okay. So, okay. And now you can see up here it's going through, the command line is meshing everything into those things. And here it popped up and says our file has been successfully written. And so we'll go over here, pop up Studio Max. I suggest getting this started ahead of time. Studio Max usually takes a good minute to get loaded here. So we're going to go ahead and import this and merge it into the scene here. And you can see again, I've already been setting myself up. You've got to go find your file, hit open. and it comes up with this Dxf Import Settings. The first thing you want to pay attention to is, hopefully when you've been working in Rhino, you've been working at a 1-to-1 scale, so that if feet are feet, inches are inches, whatever it is that you're trying to do. So that has implications in terms of how the software is going to render out different materials. So as long as hopefully you've been paying attention to that and getting that set up. You can rescale it if you would like to, and so we can come in here, so the incoming unit file units are in feet, and so we can actually see how all of these guys are set up. Okay. The second thing we want to pull down is we're going to actually be importing by layer, and that's harkening back to each one of these guys. I selected these guys and exported them, but I had this on, if we look at the properties, this on the floor plates layer, and the columns on the columns layer. And so when what that translates into is, when we bring this into Studio Max, we can create an object by layer. So the columns will become one object, and the floor plates will become one object. And then we want to check the box that says create one scene object for each AutoCAD architecture one. And so what that basically translates into is, for each one of those layers, we want to create an object. If you don't check this box, it imports it as a solid. Scroll down here, we want to do the auto smoothing, generate coordinates for all objects, include all references. Otherwise, you should be good to go. Hit OK, and you can see our geometry pops up. If we pull up our select by name here, we can see our layers, and so we can select our floor plates, or we can select our columns. And then we can start manipulating them for rendering, so we can apply materials to those systems and the like.